Welcome, everyone. As you can see, Jay still managed to get his opening howdy in there. As well as a couple of nice pics from the air as we flew over the Bahamas. We recently got to spend a week with some wonderful friends of ours, Ronnie and Paula Pruitt, down in St. Martin as they finished up an 8-week rotation running a charter operation on a 44-foot lagoon. More on that after we hear a little history from my history guy.
History records that the island was named by Christopher Columbus after the feast of St. Martin of Tours on November 3rd, 1493. Although some historians have given rise to the theory that he actually spotted Nevis, and a map-making error placed a name on the island we know today as St. Martin. Its indigenous inhabitants mined salt from the shallow ponds. There is evidence that the Dutch were raiding these ponds for their salt for some time before they established a settlement. The first permanent European settlers were French outlaws, fleeing other Caribbean islands. The Dutch and Spanish both built forts on opposing sides of Great Bay in the south, with the Spanish withdrawing in 1648. Eventually, demarcation was achieved with the Concordia Agreement between France and the Dutch Republic. However, it must be said that still today, there is some dispute arising over financial responsibility related to reconstruction due to the hurricane damage. Great Britain briefly held all or parts of the island for periods in the 1670s, the early 1780s, and in 1801 to 1802. Is anyone else detecting an opportunity for a Six Flags over St. Martin? It was under Vichy France control, the Franco-Nazi regime, for the first part of World War II, with strong circumstantial evidence that by 1942 it was controlled by the Free French and the Dutch monarchy. There are reports that in 1943 or 44, depending on the source, the Princess Juliana, heir to the throne, visited the island during her wartime exile in Canada. The airfield was upgraded to an airport and was used by Allied powers to patrol for German U-boats who were attempting to halt the flow of refined petroleum to Europe. Shipments from the islands of Aruba and Curacao, north of Venezuela, provided 60% of the Allied fuel requirements in Western Europe. Today, St. Martin, the Southern Partition, is a country in and of its own right and a constituent of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, while the northern part is an overseas territory of France. Currently, overland travel is not restricted for want of a passport between the two sides. However, immigration and customs are enforced at official points of entry, and one does need to check in and out of the respective countries when sailing from anchorage to anchorage.
Wow, nerd. Thanks, babe. A short taxi ride from the airport, we met Ronnie and Paula at the dinghy dock for refreshments.
And some pretty good stories about their 2 months on the boat.
The crew of the Renegade Mermaid then loaded our one suitcase, 2 small backpacks, and us into the dinghy for a short ride to the boat. The Renegade Mermaid was anchored in Simpson Bay. After a short safety briefing, we unpacked and settled into our home for the next week. We were anchored near some beautiful and very expensive boats.
Definitely. Some of these beasts of the sea spend upwards of $200,000 every time they leave the dock. Fuel, food, paying the crew. Simpson Bay itself is a mildly rolly anchorage, so monohulls beware.
Once settled in, we enjoyed the first of many beautiful sunsets with wonderful friends, cool breezes, and incredible scenery. How's that for a view from your back porch? The next morning, Ronnie and Jay went to immigration to check us out for the following afternoon. Pay attention to the architecture on the Dutch side. You'll soon see how it differs from the incomplete structural repairs in the French quarters. Then, we lifted anchor and set sail for Philipsburg, the capital of St. Martin, the Dutch side.
While anchored in Great Bay, we got to see an example of a Freedom-class littoral combat ship. It has a modular design, allowing it to be rapidly reconfigured for various missions. Go Navy. Over 20,000 people enter the island when 4 cruise ships are in port. This day, there are 2. A light day for nearby merchants, as only about 2/3 of the shops were open. The world is full of stories. Here's one for you. This French-Canadian gentleman, who was anchored in front of us, bought his boat online. By the time he got to his boat, there was no mast, no boom, no standing rigging, and no running rigging. Getting no satisfaction from the seller, he decided to put the boat in the water and acquire his materials he needed himself. Right before he left to go to St. Martin, he got a call from a guy who happened to have every single thing he needed. Granted, it was all used. He needed to pay full price for it if he wanted it right then and there. Luckily, and smartly, wisely, he refused. He's waiting on his parts and his wife before he can begin the next part of his adventure. So what's paradise without a cheeseburger? We got to meet Ruthie at her kiosk on the beach. Franco was playing hooky that day. The Dirty Sanchez, presumably referring to the family name. We joined in the local custom of signing the guest book. That little stand right on the beach with the yellow sign, that's the place you're looking for.
Tune in next time as we take a little sail over some excited water to the uninhabited Isle Fourcheux, my personal favorite stop of this adventure.
One channel note, YouTube generally does not notify subscribers when a short video is posted, so check out our channel page every so often for those.
Thanks for watching. Hit that like button
Subscribe.
and please leave a comment.
Until next time.